Hey, welcome to a new episode of Skin in the Game. This is your host, John Simperman, with my co-host,
Tim O'Shea.
Hey, Tim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, John, and I brought a baseball friend for you and for me today.
Well, no, I'm super excited. We have a really cool interview coming up here. Tim, why don't you let our listeners know who is going to be joining us today on Skin in the Game?
So excited, John, to have Kate Brownell, better known as Katie Brownell, who is a native of Oakfield, New York. And for people who aren't familiar with Oakfield, or the upstate or western New York region, it's a small town located between Buffalo and Rochester. And we've got Katie joining us today because this is the 20th anniversary of a game that made her famous. And we'll talk, John, more about this with Katie when she's on the call with us. But back in 2005, Katie is a young baseball player.
So this is the 20th anniversary.
This is the 20th anniversary.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're talking 2005 May. So we're a little past that 20th. But May of 2005, Katie was the only girl on an otherwise all-boys team and league playing in Oakfield. And she pitched a perfect game, which, have you ever heard of anybody pitching a perfect game, striking out every batter?
No, I have not.
Neither had anyone else. And so when Katie managed to do that, and it's funny, she'll tell us she didn't even know she was doing it. She was just going out there and playing, and nobody was hitting the ball. But when Katie was in the midst of a perfect game, people started noticing it happened. It scored her national attention.
Okay, so let me get this right. There were all boys on all the teams. She's the only girl on the sandlot, and she strikes everyone out.
She dominated.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, the president of the United States at the time, George W. Bush, was among the baseball fans out there who said, wow. So were the people running the New York Mets and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Both of them had her out to games. She was on talk shows. She was a big story in the New York Times. Katie got lots of attention for this. Her jersey, her glove, other equipment ended up both in Cooperstown in the Baseball Hall of Fame, in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, in the Little League Hall of Fame. She became, at the time, as a young kid, as an elementary school kid, an icon for girls in baseball. Now, again, 20 years later, she is still out there standing for that, talking about women in sports, but she's doing a lot more. She runs a fitness business. She is coaching softball. She's promoting the game of softball. I've known Katie for a long time. We'll get into it, John, during the interview, but so happy to have her here today and really excited to introduce the two of you.
No, that's great. And Tim, the timing is so appropriate because obviously we talk a lot about the growth of women's sport here on Skin in the Game. And there is Athletes Unlimited, which is a professional women's softball league that has just launched. So really anxious to talk to Katie about where that league can go and the potential of it and get more women playing both hardball and softball. So that's great. Great timing. Speaking of timing, another very popular sport that we joked a little bit here in studio is the growth of pickleball. And not sure if you saw, but Andre Agassi is not only playing pickleball these days, but he and a major investment group just invested $20 million into this sports entertainment complex that is called Ballers, that is going to be focused on racket sports. So think of Topgolf for racket sports, all in what they say is these 50,000 square foot complexes. So pickleball's growing, and Andre Agassi and others are now investing in these entertainment complexes.
Talk about a great way to make those sports available year-round to people, too. To have a big, splashy complex like that in climates that are, not the West Coast,
right,
where you can, hit a
right,
pickleball court on the beach.
Right. Well, the first market is going to be Philadelphia.
Oh, there you go.
Which makes a ton of sense. And then they're also looking over the next 10 years to build 50 of these 50,000 square foot entertainment complexes, social clubs. So I do see a market like Toronto. Hamilton would be a great market for one of these. Buffalo, Western New York, Cleveland, Detroit. I could really see this taking off. And from what I see and what I read, pickleball isn't going anywhere fast. It continues to grow.
Oh, it's absolutely growing. And, it makes me wonder, too, with complex like this, chiefly, are you tapping into the market of players out there, or are you looking at it as an opportunity to pull in people who, may love the sport, but just haven't been exposed to it yet? I know the answer is, well, yes and yes. We want to do both of those.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering which way it leans. Is there just a large unmet need for pickleball players? Or is there a large unmet opportunity to get more people playing pickleball in the first place?
Yeah, well, so much of it, Tim, is the whole bar on entertainment and fan expectations has risen, right? We talk about this a lot. There's more to it than just the game, right? It's all the entertainment around it. And people are looking for these kind of, I guess I call them hybrid experiences, right? Where you merge two different passions. So in the case of this venue, it's merging food and drink with the passion of paddle sports, right? The fan and the discretionary dollars out there, people are always looking for new and unique experiences. And I think this hits a pretty big box because these paddle sports are growing and people are looking for other things to do. Look at Topgolf. Topgolf has exploded. And that's an example of, they make a lot of money on the food and the beverage, but it's the quote unquote golf that gets people in the door.
Yeah, well, it'd be great to see this available in places like Toronto, Hamilton, and yes, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Buffalo. And I mean, keep going into the Midwest there. I mean, all these markets where, you cannot go do this through the year outside,
right.
and there probably aren't that many indoor courts available. So
Right.
to do something that's attractive, splashy, even for people who aren't going to become intense competitors, they just want to do it for fun, grab a drink at the bar, enjoy the whole experience. That's great.
Right. Speaking of experiences, you had an experience.
I had a new one.
Was this esports?
Esports, yes. Okay, so I want to preface what I'm about to say. For those of you out there who are into gaming, who are esports athletes or fans, everything I'm about to say you're going to hear me say, well, okay, I'm glad you're catching up. For all of you out there who are just vaguely aware or less that video games can be played as a high-level sport and the players can be referred to as athletes, they get sponsorships, and that this is a big dollar thing. Oh, the professionals out there. A week ago, with 3 friends from Buffalo, I headed up to Toronto to go to one of the arenas in Toronto and attend Valorant Masters. So I'm going to pause and just, John, put you on the spot. Valorant Masters. Does it mean anything to you?
No. Is it Dungeons and Dragons or something?
Well, you're in the...
Okay.
Oh my gosh, if I say yes, I'm going to get that wrong and get myself in trouble. Valorant Masters, it's a video game. Okay. It's a big, it's a huge product that's developed by Riot Games out of Southern California. There's several editions of Valorant Masters. I don't know enough about video games to liken it to something, but in the most elementary way, can tell you players adopt a character, a skin. They compete on different maps. They use a keyboard and mouse to use weapons and take out other players, right? And so Valorant Masters takes some of the best esports teams, the best Valorant teams from around the world, brings them into one place, in this case, Toronto. Previously, it was Bangkok. I'm not sure where the next one is, but they go around the world. Each team has 5 active players. I believe you can have 6 on the roster and scratch one. But 5 active players who walk out injured. They come out of a locker room, which is a coaching area.
Lights, camera, action, the whole thing?
Lights,
wow.
Music, cameras, everything you're thinking, a big Jumbotron-style screen. They sit in the center of the arena at a computer with keyboard and mouse. They wear earbuds so that they can hear each other and noise-canceling headphones so they can't hear the crowd yelling instructions, right? They can only see their view through their player. And they compete, one team against the other. The fans are watching the action on a massive screen. Again, think any video screen, any Jumbotron-style technology. And they're sitting around the arena, heads up. And we were sitting in the front row, which means my neck was cranked way upward, like to the point where I was doing neck stretches after watching this game. And I got to tell you, first of all, the skill level of the players is absolutely incredible. To watch what they can do with a keyboard and mouse, the reaction time, when you think about what they're doing and what you're watching, they are, I know it's not what maybe traditional sports people would call athletics, but there's a physical and mental skill in there.
Sure.
And it is outstanding.
So, think of NASCAR, think of F1 drivers.
Yeah.
I mean, they're It's all reaction time and mental sharpness.
They're
Absolutely.
operating a
Yeah.
machine and they know how to do
Right.
it at the highest level. So that's what you're seeing. When you watch on the screen, though, there's also there's a whole production staff back there that's switching from player view to player view, one screen to another. So it's really like you're watching like television, like entertainment, while these guys, and it was all, in this case, it was all guys, are playing each other round after round after round after round. Selfies, photos, autographs, meet and greets. The celebrity status of these players, of these athletes, is high, to put it lightly. They are heroes in this industry. They are heroes in that arena. My first conversation ever about esports was with Kim Bagula quite some time ago. And I remember she was looking at it, as something one day to possibly
Sure.
have
There's
as part of what the
there's
Bills
teams,
do in
right?
Buffalo.
Right.
Yeah, or the
A
Bills
very
and Sabres
yeah, I
do.
know Boston and
Yeah.
Delaware North has an investment in an esports team.
They've looked at it. No
Mhm.
indication that the Bills or Sabres will be doing it. We don't know that. But I mean, it's been on everybody's minds, and it's cool to have a chance to see it. So I'll wrap by saying this. If you haven't seen it yet, do yourself a favor sometime and check it out. It's a really interesting and huge part of the sports industry that I think is still off the radar for a lot of people. I think people find it fascinating to take a little bit of time and check it out.
Now,
Starting with you, John.
I just got to ask: is there gambling involved? Because then that's a whole new element.
You can.
To it.
Yeah,
Okay,
you can bet on that. I mean, I didn't, but you can bet on this
All
stuff.
right.
Yeah.
That takes it to a next level. See, here on Skin in the Game, we're not just stick and ball sports. We're expanding the globe.
Keyboard and mouse sports too.
So, no, interesting. It'll be fun to watch that and fun to see where that goes. But absolutely, they are athletes, and absolutely, it's a sport to keep an eye on. But with that, why don't we get to your guest?
Yeah, so we're gonna go back to perhaps the most traditional sport we can, the sport of baseball and the sport of softball. Stay tuned to Skin in the Game. Next up is Kate Brownell.
I'm excited to see, like, she said this, well, he said that. The truth will come out.
Wondering what the buzz is? What's the hot goss? Whatever it is, we're talking about it on Group Chat, your weekly connection to the unpredictable, weird, and wonderful world of pop culture. From film, music, theater to food, blockbusters, and beyond. Every week with Tiffany Bentley and her revolving panel of pop culture enthusiasts. Listen to Group Chat on Fridays at 10 a.m. and Saturdays at noon on BTPM NPR.
I'm very excited.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Skin in the Game. John, let me introduce you through the screen here to Kate Brownell. Kate, meet John.
Hey, Kate,
John.
great to meet you. Thanks for joining us here on Skin in the Game. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, so thanks again.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Kate, you and I, this is hardly an introduction. You and I have known each other for, gosh, I guess it's a little over 10 years now. And of course, we're going to go back momentarily 20 years and then bring things to today. But let's just fill in everybody, including John, on how you and I met. Do you want to do the honors, or do you want me to tell the story and you fill it in?
I like your version better.
You like my version? Okay, so we're going to take everybody back to Buffalo State University 10 or 12 years ago when Kate was in college. I was teaching a 300 level feature writing class. Kate was a journalism major, and she was in my class. She came up to me after class one day, very quietly, and said, "Hey, I just wanted to pull you aside for a minute because I'd like to get into sports media." And I said, "Oh, cool. What are you thinking?" And she said, ESPN, something like that. But I'd like to get into sports media, and I think you could help me with that. And I said, "Well, definitely. I'd love to help you with that." Then, Kate, you jumped in and said, do you remember what you said?
I think I said I have a little bit of experience already.
You did. Yeah, you said that's exactly it. And I said, "All right, what is your experience?" And then she told me about something that had happened back 10 years earlier. So we're talking May 2005. And the single game Kate played that grabbed not only national attention, but the attention of the President of the United States, two Major League Baseball teams, two Halls of Fame. And we're going to tell that story momentarily. But I looked at her and I said, "Kate Brownell." Wait, Katie Brownell? You're that Katie Brownell? And then we just jumped back in time and told the story. So, Kate, John and I are we have a list of things we want to talk to you about, ranging from NIL to the new Athletes Unlimited Softball League to what it's like to be a fitness entrepreneur. But before we get to any of that, take us back to May 2005 and what happened on that one particular afternoon.
May 14th, 2005. The game That changed my life for sure. I had a little league game. I played boys baseball. We actually had picture day, so we were there early. Coach is like, "Hey, Kate, go warm up. We're gonna pitch the first four, and then John, my shortstop, was gonna go in to pitch the fifth and sixth inning of that game." So we're going along, and my mom comes over in the fourth inning of the game. We were playing the Yankees at the time. I played for the Dodgers. She's like, "Bug," because that was my nickname back then. She's like, "Bug, you're pitching a perfect game." I'm like, "All right, cool." Like, I have no idea what the heck that is. I'm just throwing the ball, hitting the ball, running around the bases, doing what I love, playing with the boys. And that next inning, I was supposed to go to short, but my bookkeeper is looking at the book and he's like, he told my coach, he said, "Hey, we can't take her out now. She's pitching a perfect game." But again, I didn't know what the heck that was. So I just did what I was supposed to do. And I went back out to the mound. I struck out the next side, all three, came back in. Sixth inning, got the first two. Last batter fouled off a couple over the backstop. And I struck him out, pitched the perfect game, and my team came flying out. My coaches hugged me. "Oh my God, you did it, you did it." I was like, "Did what?" Like, I just pitched. We won 11-0. I think I had a home run that game as well. So I was just thrilled to win. As soon as we shook hands and stuff, my brother, he's one of my brothers, he's 10 years older than me. He knows all about baseball, big baseball lover, and he's telling me about how awesome it was and how like nobody ever does this. I remember I had called my dad because he's a truck driver and he would not believe what I did. He's like, "No, you didn't." I was like, "I don't know. Here, talk to mom." So my mom told him, and he was like, "We got to call the president of the league." And so we made that call. And the president of the league actually called just our local newspaper. And ever since that first story, it just went bonkers. It
Yeah,
went
I remember the New York Times covered this. I was writing for Buffalo Business First at the time and was asked to interview you, and actually wrote your family a letter that you I don't think you guys ever opened. You actually showed it to me 12 years later. You said, "My mom was going through some old files and I have this letter from you." But that, I mean, there were a lot of people trying to get your attention, including the president of the United States. So we can come back to that, but suffice it to say, Katie Brownell at the time, made national news, got the attention of sports fans everywhere. I know the Baseball Hall of Fame wanted your jersey, and you were reluctant to give up your jersey at first, and then I think
I
it
did
occurred to you
not
the Baseball
want
Hall of Fame
to.
might be a worthy recipient, right?
Well, yeah. So I didn't honestly I didn't even know that that existed. Like, I truly just played the game that I loved. I grew up with my brothers. I'll never forget. I was sitting in the parking lot with my mom, waiting to go in the grocery store, and the Hall of Fame called her, and she's like, "The Hall of Fame, like whatever," she's all excited, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and I can sort of hear what they're saying. And my mom covered the phone a little bit, and she goes, "The Hall of Fame wants your jersey," and I said, "No, that is my jersey, and I am not giving it up." And she's like, she hung up the phone and stuff, and she started talking to me, and she's like, "Kate, you don't understand. Like, this is where like Babe Ruth is, and naming all the Hall of Famers." And she's like, "I'm sure you can get another jersey."
I
So
think Kate, you made the trip to Cooperstown, right? It was a minute you brought the whole team came along as well.
yeah, July 7th of that year, 2005. We got to bring the team. Maria Pepe was there, who paved the way for all the women, which was really awesome. She got to sit right up there with me.
Have you been back? Have you been back since?
I have actually. I gave a speech to over 100 women. I want to say that was 2018 or 2019, which was really awesome. I've been able to bring my nieces to show them the jersey. So I've definitely been back a few times, but I think I'm due for a trip, especially since it's been 20 years.
Yeah, yeah. Well, for all of us sports fans and obviously all girls who are competing, I think you made the right decision donating the jersey. So good call.
For those out there listening to who might make their way to Williamsport, Pennsylvania for the Little League Hall of Fame, Katie, your glove is there, right?
Yeah, glove and ball, and I believe my cleats as well. So yeah, I actually have never seen that one. So I definitely need to make a trip out
Yeah,
there.
it's good. Okay, well, you're due. Yeah, you're due for that trip. You're due for that trip too. All right, so John, I want to frame, I think you and I should frame this for everybody out there listening. And, and Katie, for you as well, this is something you and I have talked about a bunch over the years. This happened for Katie in 2005. Kate, have you tell the story, but as you proceeded through your athletic career, there were certain opportunities that were not available to you that if this had happened today or in the last few years might be available. So let's do this in two parts. Can you take us through just high school and into college and the choices you made as an athlete and eventually as a coach? And then, John, I think we should jump into NIL and Athletes Unlimited Softball League and some of the opportunities that are available to great athletes today that weren't to Katie back at the time.
For sure. All right. So I, started playing when I was 5 and T-ball and everything. And so that was kind of that mix, boys, girls. And once you turn 9, girls are supposed to go to softball and the boys go to baseball. But I wanted no part of that. I wanted to go with my brothers. It's what I've known. It looked more fun. I loved that competitive side. And so my town agreed. They let me play if I was good enough and could make a team. So I tried out, made the team, which was great. So I played Little League Baseball. I actually went in to play junior and senior league. So that's just the extension. I believe that's your 13, 14 years old. And at the same time, I actually had joined a travel league for softball because I really wanted to play high school baseball. But unfortunately, my school would not allow that because there was softball offered to the girls. So I needed to learn how to play softball before I got into high school. So for 1 year, I was actually playing baseball and softball. I'll never forget, I was playing softball thinking that I can take a lead, and I got in trouble for taking that lead. So I was mixing the two up, but it was fun. I got to play baseball until I was 15. Then I had to switch completely over to softball due to not being able to play in high school because that softball was offered. So I played 4 years there. And then I went on to play college softball at Buffalo State. And then from there, I went on to coach softball at Amherst College in Massachusetts, which was pretty awesome. My second year, we were able to make it all the way to the Women's College World Series for Division III. And that was the first time they ever played in Oklahoma. So we got to go right on that field that I remember watching as a kid, thinking I would love to play there one day. And I actually got to coach there. So that was pretty awesome.
Katie, how did the transition go from hardball to softball? I mean, some of the skills transfer, but like you said, some of the rules are different and the pitching's a little bit different. So how did that transition go for you?
Exactly. Those are the two main things, especially like you're so used to a baseball coming in, high to low, whereas softball, that rise ball will get you good. Just the trajectory of where the ball goes. So pitching was very different. Definitely the mound right to home plate is very different. So the ball's coming in so much faster and the field's smaller. So everything was just so much quicker. Whereas baseball, like I love baseball to death, but I feel like it's a much like slower, drawn out game versus like softball is just so fast.
Right.
And then yeah, the rules are just a little bit different, especially with the no leading, which I learned pretty quickly as but yeah, it was an adjustment for sure, but I fell in love with the game just as much as I did baseball.
Yeah, that's great. It kind of reminds me of you see a lot of people today, with this whole pickleball craze, right? They're
Oh,
transferring their tennis game to pickleball and they're making up different rules and doing different things.
Kate, how excited are you for the Athletes Unlimited Softball League, which, of course, had that existed when you were playing softball as a teenager, that would have given you a pro league to aspire to, right?
yes, for sure. Being able to turn on the TV now for all those little girls and see like, oh my gosh, I could totally do that. Whereas when I was younger, like I turned it on and watched MLB, and I still remember one of my interviews, the anchor had asked me, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I want to be the first female in the MLB because that's all that I saw was Major League Baseball. Whereas like now these little girls can look and watch these professional softball players killing it and know like, hey, I could be there one day, you know? So I think that had I had that when I was younger, I would have probably transitioned to softball sooner just because I feel like I could have actually had the avenues and routes to get to that level.
Well, yeah, and just for our listeners, this new Athletes Unlimited Softball League, it's first of its kind. It's right now starting with 4 teams, kind of a barnstorming league that's exposing fans across the country to the game. But there are visions to bring this up to 10 or 12 teams. And Katie, it's funny you brought up how kind of the speed of the game and kind of the drama and a little bit of the pace of baseball is probably more like watching a chess game in some places. What I've noticed with the softball game, it's got a little bit of a pinball vibe to it, right? So you better be on your toes. And I think today's generation, which has a very not a long thought span, and kind of this new video game generation, I think softball might be able to play into their emotion a little bit more.
I agree for sure.
Kate, you still coach softball, right? As part of your own business?
Yeah, I offer private lessons, and I've been doing some motivational speeches with some of the younger all-star teams to get them prepped and ready for their season.
What do you see in the young athletes you work with today in terms of like what their aspirations are for playing in college or potentially going pro, going to Olympics? I mean, do you hear them talking outwardly about that?
Oh, absolutely. One of my lessons actually recently had talked to this like recruiting company, and she's like all about going to Florida already, because you see them in the Women's College World Series and you just identify with, hey, I'm like that girl, or I want to be like that girl. So I think having those role models on TV for these girls to see, and also social media with the Instagram and the TikTok and all that stuff, like it's giving these girls so much more access to see what they can do.
John, because of knowing Kate for so long, I do think back to college when she and I met, and you were a great athlete, Kate, and also you were really into fitness. I remember, you spent a ton of time in the gym. You wrote about it in our class. You talk about it. I know it was and remains a deep passion of yours. And John, what I think about for Kate is if name, image, likeness, if NIL had existed a decade ago, she'd be Katie. I think you'd be pretty rich right now, actually.
You're right.
Well, just Katie, I'm not to depress you, but I think you may have read recently that a Texas Tech player received a $1.1 million name, image, and likeness deal.
I sure did. And I watched her the whole World Series. Deserves it. She deserves it. I'm so happy for all of these people that get to have that opportunity. Although I do really wish that I had that opportunity back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah,
But
no, and to your point, I mean, the ratings, the growth of the Women's College World Series has taken off. I think the interesting thing is, and I was digging into some of this, is, with these name, image, and likeness deals, it's actually much more lucrative for some of these stars to stay playing college softball than it is to go to the new pro league because I think the salaries, at least right now, are capped at about $40,000 a year.
oh, 100%. And I just saw, I believe the colleges can actually pay these athletes directly now as well as the NIL deals, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, great for them. We were just, especially you, were just a little bit before your time. But it's great to see the women's game grow. And then if you look too, and Tim and I on this program, we've had the Professional Women's Hockey League featured. We've talked a lot about the WNBA. What do you think? I mean, with the exception of Caitlin Clark playing women's softball, what can we do? What can the women's pro game do you think, to get to that level and be sustainable?
I think just keep supporting each other. I think having, all the women come together and the whole everybody watches women's sports, I feel like is huge. And it's true. Like the men are watching it, the women are watching it, people of older generations are watching it, the young kids are watching it. So just continuing to support them to help increase, their revenue and build them up. I think they'll be even with the men one day. I might
Yeah.
not be here, but soon enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're catching up on the basketball side. It was great
Yeah,
to see
percent.
in the recently played French Open. I believe the purse for the women's winner was the same as the men's winner. So it's happening in other sports. And I do think when it comes to women's softball, I hope the fact that Major League Baseball has invested and it has an equity interest in this new league is a positive. I did read, I'm not sure if you saw this, but a few women's players are going to be competing in the home run derby this year.
Wow, I didn't see that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I just think that, that is going to help in a big way. The NBA owns quite a few of the WNBA teams, and there's that cross promotion. So it's good to see Major League Baseball step up. Women's softball, I think, is going to be a marquee part of the Olympics in 2028. So there's another milestone. So there's some wind behind the sails right now.
Definitely.
Kate, I would love to dig into how you've built your career by, from my perspective, like stacking one opportunity and one set of skills on another. John and I talk a lot on this program about the lessons young athletes can learn from a sport and take it into other parts of life. And it just feels like you're the epitome of that. Let's go back in time again. So tell us a little bit about how the skills you built as an athlete and as a coach have translated into your success as an entrepreneur, as a businesswoman.
What I've been talking to the girls about that I've been speaking to is how softball is just like life. So it has a way of teaching us lessons even when we don't realize it. So building resilience, hard work, teamwork. For me as a fitness entrepreneur at my gym, I'm big on community. So we're always stronger together. I think just growing up and facing the adversity. So being the only girl in the league and listening to what I had to listen to, like, I could have easily folded when I'm hearing, she doesn't belong there, or she's only getting this attention because she's a girl, even though nobody else in the world had ever done it, boy or girl. So it could have been very easy for me just to throw in the towel, give up, say, oh yeah, I should probably just go to the softball field now. But I didn't. And I think that is truly what built me into never backing down no matter how hard the obstacle was going to be, right? So going into college, like as a freshman, you have to earn your position. I was a starter at shortstop, or I'm sorry, second base my freshman year. And then I got to play short my second year. And then I finished out catching the last 2 years. And then same thing going into the coaching world. You know how many people want to coach softball, college softball? So getting my foot in the door, I had to volunteer first, so not get paid. I was actually doing full-time sports information, which was awesome. So I got to work with some of the other athletic teams. And then I had started doing my own personal training and my own lessons just so that I could, live out there. I moved away from home, but getting my foot in the door allowed me to actually take on that full-time assistant, which then allowed me to be on that stage of the Women's College World Series at the Division III level. And then from there, unfortunately, you don't make a lot of money coaching, especially as an assistant. So I had to make a decision. And that's when I went full time into training, personal training. And I remember walking into the Edge fitness clubs in Manchester, Connecticut for my first interview. And I quickly learned that there were 12 other trainers on staff. So I'm like, how the heck am I going to compete with 12 other trainers? Especially most of them are men, right? In the fitness industry, there's a lot of male dominant trainers. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to let this stop me. Like, I know I can change someone's life. And I ended up becoming the top producer. I actually earned a trip out to California to the creator of Dot Fit, Neil Spruce. I got to go to his ranch because I was one of the top producers in the whole company, but definitely the top of my own club. And then from there, a bunch of my clients were like, you should go on your own. I was like, I don't know about that. Like, that's pretty scary, opening up your own business, especially as a girl, again, in the fitness industry. Like, who's going to want to come train with this girl over here? But everything from, 20 years ago that built me reminded me, like, hey, you've made it this far. Take the opportunity. Good things have come every single time you've put yourself out there. And so I jumped ship and I opened up my own business starting in COVID, which was pretty hard, but I wasn't going to let COVID stop me. That's for sure. I started in a 500 square foot garage and quickly built myself into a 3,600 square foot dual gym. So I have gym side and then I have softball side. So I learned, especially through sports, if you want something bad enough, you can have it. As long as you put in the work.
That's great. Hey, we're here with Katie Brownell, who it was, yeah, 20 years ago, struck out 18 batters in Little League, and now is overcoming a few other challenges. So, opening a business, which in your world is personal contact, coaching and a gym in COVID, how did that happen? Did you have to go virtual? How did you survive COVID and having a business, a gym business in particular?
So I had left the Edge that last day in February, ready to, go on my own, rent some space first, just so I could start out and didn't have that overhead. And I got 1 week in at this place facility, and then the world shut down.
Right.
And we had to pivot. So I would do virtual lessons or virtual sessions with some clients. We would meet up in parks where it's like open air. We figured out a way. My clients loved working out, they loved the results, and they didn't want to stop just because of COVID, right? So where there's a will, there's a way, right?
Kate, it strikes me most of our conversation has been not about that one day in May 2005, but about your career since then, which is exactly what it should be, right? But I do want to go back to that, thinking about that day and ask you this, like, how much does it still define who you are when people meet you and they realize, like I did when I met you, hey, that's you? Like, what kind of reactions do you get?
Funny enough, so I actually, again, going back to the girls that have come to my gym for me to speak to them the last couple times, I told them just take a look around, figure out who I am, and they all come back. And I have a picture of the Hall of Fame gave me like a portrait of my jersey hanging in that first case that I got when I was inducted. And then I have the Times article on like a nice plaque. So they take a look around and they start reading and they're like, you're in the Hall of Fame, and they like go crazy, right? And I just laugh. And so I have them all come back and I sit down and I said, listen, I said, that is a part of my journey, but that is not who I am. I am so much more than that. I think that game for sure built me to who I am today, but I still get really uncomfortable talking about the girl in the Hall of Fame because, like, to me, it was just a game. To anybody that's like a sports fan or a big baseball fan, they like go crazy over it, right? Even like I have so many baseball cards to still sign. Topps made a baseball card on me in 2022, and I got so much fan mail. Like I can't even tell you how much mail I have. And it all got sent to my gym because I didn't want them to be sending it to my home. I don't know how they got I mean, I guess the gym's more out there. But anyways, I got a lot of fan mail. So like to other people, it's like the coolest thing in the world. And to me, I'm like, it was just a game. So I don't let it define me. I don't think I ever will let it define me. I think that it's awesome. I love showing my nieces, my jersey in the Hall of Fame. And one day when I have kids, I can't wait to bring them. So I think it's just like a really cool piece of my journey.
Right. You don't want to peak at 11 years old. There's still,
So much left after that.
but what's really cool is obviously you can, and exactly what you're doing now, sharing your story, sharing the journey, and, excited about where this could all lead over the next 25 years. But yeah, Katie, trust me, you did not peak at 11 years old. So,
Thank you.
Hey, before we wrap, though, I do need to have you, Katie, tell us the story of President George W. Bush requesting to meet you. I know this story, but I know John doesn't. I think the people out there listening would maybe like to hear about this moment.
All right. So it started with a call to my parents, and they did not believe that it was the White House calling. So that call ended shortly. Then we got a letter in the mail from the White House signed by George Bush that he wanted to meet me. He was going to be at Greece Athena giving a speech on Social Security. Didn't know what the heck that was at 11 years old. But my parents were like, oh, wow, like the president of the United States wants to actually meet you. So we ended up going up. I was excited to meet the president. I had a baseball ready to go in, and they took that from me. they said that they didn't want me to throw it at him. They said he's actually going to have a ball for you when he meets you, which was pretty cool. So there was he brought me a presidential stamped baseball. It was me and I think 5 or 6 other elderly people that he was meeting, and he saved me for last, which was really cool. But if you knew me 20 years ago, I didn't make eye contact. I barely spoke. I'm not sure how I ever thought I was going to be on ESPN as a broadcaster, Tim. Um, but a girl can dream, right? So he came up to me and he was all excited and he's like, "What pitches did you throw?" And I just said, "A fastball." And then he's like, asking me all these questions about the game. I'm giving him one word answers. And he's like, I own the Texas Rangers. And I think I pretty much just said, "Cool." Like, it was so just, I don't know, blah, I guess. And he ended up signing the ball for me. And then I went out and sat. We actually got to sit right next to Jim Kelly, which was really awesome. He's the one that taught me how to sign my autograph. So thank you, Jim Kelly. And of course, the news got me sleeping in his Social Security speech. So I put that on TV too.
I think, Katie, he may have been offering you a tryout when he mentioned he owned the Rangers.
I wish I took it. You know what? They have a professional women's baseball league coming. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I did. That's great. That's great. More momentum. Well, Katie, I want to thank you for joining us and thank you for continuing to inspire the next generation. And, can't wait to see where the evolution of women's professional softball goes to. But I think, as I mentioned, I think the league has some wind in the sails, behind the sails. And I think there's plenty of momentum. And I think it all dates back to May of 2005. So thanks for getting this off the ground.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thanks, Kate. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
We'll be back right after this.
Corey here with the Compact Civics Expansion Pack.
America is such a big, wide, awesome place, and to be able to see things that are representative of so many different places can be so important when brought to your tiny town.
Everybody is so kind and loving. I'm here in Buffalo just because of Stage Buffalo.
From urban farms to rural fairs, we'll celebrate spaces that bring us together and create community.
Watch on the Buffalo Toronto Public Media YouTube channel.
From your morning commute to quiet evenings at home, Buffalo Toronto Public Media is always there with trusted news, inspiring stories, and timeless music. It's your connection to a world of wonder. This is Public Media.
Hey, welcome back to Skin in the Game. And Tim, I want to thank you for bringing Kate Brownell into studio. What a remarkable story and what a historic event 20 years ago.
And John, as her former teacher, her former professor, it's easy to say this. I'm so incredibly proud of her, not for the perfect game from 2005. I mean, I'm thrilled for her about that, but proud of how she has taken one moment, one game, a lifetime in sports, and all the skills and all the motivation and drive that you nurture through that, and turn this into what really is a very fulfilling, successful life, still in the sports fitness industry. But I think she is a real case study for just what sports can do for a person. Perfect game or not. But that perfect game is pretty cool.
That's super cool. And, I was joking with Katie that, she didn't peak at the age of 11. But in all seriousness, when you do something that historic, and you're visited by the President of the United States, and you're put into the Baseball Hall of Fame and talk shows and New York Times, I mean, that could be too much sometimes, right? And that could, really feed into your ego. And then you do peak at the age of 11. But to your point, she went on to Buff State. She went on to play collegiate softball, which I got to imagine is a little bit of a transition from hardball. So, so she continues to use that great historic feat, but continuing to build herself and now to build her own company.
And she's very humble about it too. As a side note, back at that class at SUNY Buffalo State University when she came up and was asking for mentoring. She wasn't saying, "Hey, I want to tell you about a famous moment I had." She was talking to her teacher and asking for guidance. But when the famous moment came up, we did a little something the next class. I pulled in a New York Times story from 2005, photocopied it for all the class, had them read it and just analyze the story for the writing. Nobody in that class realized that the subject of the story was sitting amongst them, not at first at least. And we were just analyzing the structure of the story and brainstorming questions for this young Katie Brownell. Like, if you could ask her a question today, what would you ask her? And they were brainstorming this whole list of questions, and then I looked at her and I said, Katie Brownell, which one do you want to answer first? And she turned red. They burst out, kind of laughing, a little screaming. That does show you the power of sports and the power of a moment, and how you can really, when you use it right, turn it into something that has deep impact, far beyond the day,
Yeah.
the game
Yeah.
itself. There is something you said too. I think this is enlightening too. How, she didn't get, clearly, despite all the media attention and meeting the president. Katie was a shy kid at the time. She didn't get too caught up in the moment, but there are some choices her family made that I think are really instructive for people today. There was a company that wanted to make a movie about her life. There was an opportunity to go on the Ellen show. There were some other things. There was more media attention she could have gotten. And eventually her mom put a stop to it. I wasn't there for this, but I know from hearing about it, essentially said, enough, we're going to go back to being a normal family now.
Right.
And that's probably a really healthy choice that today, when people think about NIL opportunities and the value in building a viral a fan base and being able to make things go viral, that is not necessarily a choice people would make today, but it could be a healthy choice. So to me, that's instructive for what I think young athletes and their families should be thinking about today.
In many cases, I hate to say it, is they're taking advantage of this person or this situation for their own gain versus what's good for, in this case, an 11-year-old kid. So
yeah, especially now, with NIL, there are companies out there, and I'm guessing many, if not most, are well intended on this and legit. The companies out there that will work with young athletes and their families to try to maximize their fan base, their follower base. So it'll help them try to build a follower base. You brought up an interesting point too. When a college athlete can theoretically make more money by staying in college and doing an NIL deal than, going pro, say in the Athletes Unlimited Softball League, that's pretty counterintuitive.
yeah,
Right?
well, and you're seeing it in college football as well. And recently, and we'll talk more about this in another episode of Skin in the Game, but I've been following how NIL has, shall I say, devolved into the high school level. And right now, there's 14, 15-year-old kids who are looking at 6, 7-figure NIL deals. So, hey, good for them. And I hope they have really solid cash management advisors and really sound, grounding and a foundation in place. But it is a little scary when you've got 14, 50-year-olds looking at name, image, and likeness deals and how that could affect them, from mentally, going forward.
We talk a lot about the role parents play, right, in the development of young athletes. And, when parents can sometimes go too far, investing time, money, and demands on, it is really just a kid playing a game, not usually a young professional, a young future millionaire in development. So I really struggle with like, what's going to happen there. You think about the entertainment industry and you hear stories about stage moms and stage dads and taking things too far, and seeing that happen with a financial incentive in sports is a tricky thing. It does make me think back to decisions Katie's family made way back then. Nobody was dangling big money in front of them. It didn't exist back then, but they made the choice to say, this is our kid. She's playing a game and she's going to be our kid playing a game, right? That is something I think people are really going to need to remember and balance too.
Yeah. Well, and bringing this back to women's softball, again, Tim, we've seen this past year the success of the Professional Women's Hockey League and the expansion of that league. We have been following and documenting a lot of the really, it's a banner year and was a banner year for the WNBA with TV ratings, sponsorship, as well as attendance. So I do think, there's a really nice opportunity for the Professional Women's Softball League. And I think two big things coming up. One, it's a barnstorming league, and they've got a really solid TV deal with ESPN. And then secondly, women's softball is going to be, again, on an international global stage with the Olympics. And that's where some stars can be created. And then those stars will then go into the professional league. And hopefully that ball continues to roll down the hill.
I'm really excited for everything you just said, John, and the timing of the Olympics 2028 and being in this country, being in Los Angeles, that turns out to be fortuitous. I'm really happy for the Athletes Unlimited Softball League on this. I think about flag football too, much like the NHL and the NBA have been supportive, and MLB, Major League Baseball, is getting behind the Athletes Unlimited Softball League. Flag football has really been fueled by the NFL's support. And, our listeners can go back and check out an episode from a few months ago with Troy Vincent, the executive VP of the NFL, who joined us and told that story at length. So seeing the major leagues get behind these leagues, coupled with the exposure the Olympics are going to provide, this is going to be an exciting 2 or 3 years for women's sports, and long overdue, but I'm glad we're here. And I hope the trajectory keeps going in this direction.
Yeah, it should be. So now, Major League Baseball's investment, great point on the NFL's investment in flag football. I mean, they're doing it to really also expand their fan bases. It's smart. The one thing I didn't chat with Katie about, but maybe we can, when she's in town, we chat about her, is women's professional softball is really popular overseas, especially in Asia. There are examples of how that game, women's softball, which is fast paced and up tempo, can really help fill up some stadiums. So looking forward to it, looking forward to seeing the game on a world stage in 2028.
Before we wrap up, John, there's a point you brought up to me that I've got to come back to you. So wait, there are people our age out there playing baseball.
There are.
How did I not know this on a broad scale?
There absolutely are. So there's here in where we're based in Buffalo, there's a league. I think it's over 50 or over 60. And I know that there's other leagues out there in other markets. So Tim, it's not too late for you to break out the glove and hit the hard ball.
Well, I still have the glove in the trunk of my car, and I've never thrown away a baseball bat in my life. So we'll be dusting off both soon.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you for bringing Katie onto Skin in the Game. Great conversation. Great to touch on the growth and the future of women's professional softball. And I want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in to another episode of Skin in the Game. This is a production of Buffalo Toronto Public Media. Thanks for listening.